Managerial control. Okay, I know the name sounds a little stiff, right? A bit rigid. But what if I told you it's actually the one thing, the single most important tool that can keep your growing business from completely falling apart? Seriously, this isn't about micromanagement. It's about giving yourself a steering wheel instead of just slamming on the gas and hoping for the best. So let's get into it.
All right, put yourself in this situation. You've worked your tail off, your idea is a hit, and business is growing fast. But then things start to feel a little chaotic. Quality is slipping here and there, a few customer complaints are popping up, costs are mysteriously creeping higher. You feel like you're losing your grip. So what's your next move? No, really, pause and think. What is the first thing you would actually do?
You know what? Let's make this real. We're going to use an example for this whole explainer. Imagine you started a food truck, and it just blew up. It's so successful you've expanded to 3 trucks. But growth brings problems. Truck B's tacos have become a lottery. Sometimes they're perfect, other times they're way too spicy. And Truck C, they keep running out of core ingredients smack in the middle of the lunch rush. Your dream is suddenly feeling a lot more like a nightmare. This is exactly where control comes into play. And I really want you to reframe how you think about that word. Forget control freak. From now on, I want you to think steering wheel. That's what this is. It's the system that keeps your organization on the road, out of the ditch, and makes sure you're actually heading towards your destination. So what's the official definition? Well, managerial control is the process of monitoring what's going on to make sure things are happening the way you planned, and this is the most important part, correcting any major problems you find. You remember the 4 functions of management, right? You plan, you organize, you lead, and then you control. It's that last step, the control, that makes sure all the other stuff actually works. It's the feedback loop that ties it all together. So why does this matter so much? Well, it boils down to 3 big things. First, it's the only way to know if you're actually hitting your goals. It answers the question, are we winning? Second, it's like a shield. It protects your business from all kinds of threats, from bad ingredients to a data breach. And third, and maybe most importantly, it's how you learn. Control tells you why things are going right or wrong, and that's the only way you can ever improve. Okay, so that's the what and the why. But how you actually do it? This isn't some vague idea, it's a very specific 3-step process. So let's walk through it right now and use it to fix our spicy taco problem once and for all. And here's what that process looks like. It's not a one-and-done fix. It's a continuous loop, a cycle that's always centered on your goals. You measure, you compare, and you act. And then you do it all over again. It never, ever stops. So let's break down each of those steps. Step 1, measure. You've probably heard the old saying, you can't control what you don't measure, and it is absolutely true. You need real hard data. But here's a word of warning. Be really careful what you measure, because whatever you measure is what your team is going to focus on. So if you only measure the number of tacos sold, don't be shocked when quality starts to drop. It's all about picking the right key performance indicators, your KPIs. So let's go back to our food truck. For Truck B, we're going to measure customer complaints. After a week of tracking, the data's in. A pretty staggering 25% of all complaints are about the tacos being too spicy. Ouch. But now we have a hard number. We've officially measured the problem. But look, a number by itself is pretty useless. Is 25% good? Bad? We need some context. And that brings us to step 2. Compare. You take your measurement and you compare it against a standard that you've already set. That standard could be your goal, or how you did last year, or even what your competitors are doing. This is where you find what they call the deviation, that gap between what is and what should be. And here is that gap in glorious, painful color. Our company standard, our goal, is to keep the customer complaint rate below 5%. Truck B is sitting at 25%. I mean, this chart makes the problem impossible to ignore. The deviation isn't just a small blip, it's huge. It demands action. Which brings us to the final, and let's be honest, the most important step, taking managerial action. You've got the data, you can see the gap. Now what are you going to do about it? Well, you've got 2 main choices. You can correct the actual performance, that's the most common route. Or sometimes you might realize your original standard was maybe a little unrealistic and you need to revise the goal itself. So for our food truck, that 5% standard seems pretty reasonable. The problem is definitely the performance. So what's the action? We head over to Truck B, we retrain the cooks on the official standardized recipe for the salsa, making sure they understand the exact measurements. And then
We monitor them. We watch the next batch closely. And just like that, we've completed the control loop. All right, so we just fixed our spicy taco problem by going through those 3 steps. But we did it after we already got a ton of complaints, which brings up a really key question. When is the best time to apply control? Turns out you can do it at 3 different points: before, during, or after something happens. Yeah, this lays it out perfectly. You've got feed-forward control, which is proactive. It tries to anticipate problems before they even start. Then there's concurrent control, which happens in real time. It's about correcting problems as they're happening. And finally, feedback control, which is reactive. That's fixing problems after they've already occurred. Now listen, all 3 of these are useful. You need them all. But if you want to be a truly great manager, you need to live in that feed-forward zone as much as possible. Why? Because it's proactive. It stops problems before they ever get to your customer. Feedback control is really just damage control. You're cleaning up a mess that's already been made. The real strategic goal is to shift your energy from being reactive to being proactive. Let's apply this to the food truck to make it super clear. Feed-forward control, that's inspecting all the ingredients for freshness before the truck even opens for the day. Concurrent control, that's the chef tasting the salsa while it's being made to adjust the seasoning in real time. And feedback control, well, that's exactly what we did before, reading through those customer complaint cards at the end of the night. You see? You need all 3. Okay, we've got the process down. Measure, compare, act. We've got the timing down, before, during, and after. So now let's look at a few different styles or flavors of control that a manager can use, because depending on the situation, you'll want to use a different approach. There are 3 main ones: market, bureaucratic, and clan control. First up is market control. This is when you use external market forces, like what your competitors are doing, to set your standards. Think about how an airline sets salaries. They might use market control by looking at the industry average for cabin crews and making sure their pay is competitive. In this case, the market itself is giving you the standard. Next is bureaucratic control. This is the one most people think of when they hear the word control. It's all about rules, regulations, policies, and formal procedures. A perfect example is a government setting a price cap on fuel. It's a hard, fast rule that everyone has to follow, and it creates a stable, predictable environment. And finally, we have what is easily the most powerful and also the hardest one to build: clan control. This has nothing to do with rules or markets. This is all about culture. It's when people in your organization behave a certain way because of shared values, norms, and traditions. The textbook example is AirAsia's famous low-cost culture. Employees are always looking for ways to save money, not because a manager is breathing down their neck, but because it's just how we do things here. It's the ultimate form of control because it becomes self-regulating. Okay, let's bring all of this into your world. As you're getting ready to become managers, in an age of big data, remote work, constant connection, how does this all apply? Well, the core principles, measure, compare, act, they're timeless. But the challenges you're going to face, they're brand new. Just think about the tough control questions managers are dealing with right now. How do you monitor a remote employee's performance without making it feel like creepy digital surveillance? How do you protect against data theft when your company's most valuable stuff lives on the cloud? And with just a sea of data available, how do you even know what's the right thing to measure anymore? These aren't just textbook questions. These are the real-world problems your generation of leaders is going to get paid to solve. So I'm going to leave you with this one final question to think about. As technology and AI get better and better at doing the measure and compare steps for us, what happens to the manager's job? Does your future role become less about watching the numbers on a dashboard and more about building the kind of culture, that powerful clan control, where people are inspired to manage themselves? Just think about that. The future of managerial control might be less about the steering wheel and more about building a team that already knows the destination by heart.